Like your ability to go out and cast a vote is like such a precious thing. And I think as educators, it's our responsibility to make sure that curriculums and content that we present supports that, and it inspires our students to be able to have to want to pursue that, even if they're not able to vote right now, but to be able for them to have the background of what has led to where we are now, in order for them to be more engaged and have more awareness, and then for them to be able to be civically engaged right now with what's happening. As educators, we have that responsibility to make sure that we're providing the tools that educates, that inspires people to be civically engaged. Because if you look at the slide before, I mean, that's a very long history, right? That's a very, very long history to see, the privilege that we're honored eventually within the American history for people to get to a point where they can actually exercise their right. To then go here and you ask yourself, like, why aren't more people like actually engaging in this? If this is like the ultimate of American democracy. Civic engagement. Now you see the spin, right? Civic engagement is our responsibility. Oh, snap, boom, that's it. But anyways, I think it's so important as educators to look at how the different moving parts that are in our community, the different moving parts that are happening within our states, nationally, and find opportunities to be able to elevate your curriculum and your content in order to give students realistic perspectives and realistic opportunity to be able to engage at that level, and they can engage based on their interest. It doesn't have to be like, I've memorized the Declaration of Independence, and they can find different modality that suits them in order to be engaged. And then for you personally too, I want to challenge you too as teachers, as educators, like, what is your greater calling in terms of the community that you live in terms of you being involved. Relationship. So remember the first kind of the way that I show the slides: engagement, civic, our responsibility. So engagement for me is relationship. We have to be able to have relationships with our community. And if our community is a diverse community, and sometimes diversity in terms of differences doesn't necessarily just mean ethnicity or race. We have socioeconomics, we have preferences that separates how we connect with people. So if we don't go across in order to build those relationships, then we're not going to really know how other people feel and what they have and what they don't have. So the photos that you see, it's not just a bunch of photos that I pull off of Google. This is actually things that I've been involved with for the last couple of years. The far left picture is a conversation that I started in 2016 called "We Are All Human." And it happened because I was having a lot of conversation with people around very divisive topics. But the folks that I was talking to were people that trusted me, and we had good relationships, and they felt like they were comfortable enough to talk to me. It started happening so much so that I went on social media and I had a post, and I said, "Hey guys, if I hosted like a discussion around certain topics, and if we can be like civil about it, would you be interested?" And a lot of people showed interest, and I started hosting it. I ended up hosting over 35 different "We Are All Human" discussions, some of them here and some of them nationally. And part of this, it forced people to be able to discuss their differences, but without bickering, without beating each other up. And I learned so much from this experience. Even the people that came learned a lot. On the bottom is a basketball tournament that I host every summer with a good friend of mine named Jim Torero. He's a firefighter with the Manchester Fire Department. We've known each other since elementary. We're both immigrants. He was from Dominican Republic and I was from the Congo. And we've grown up here, and he ended up going the firefighter EMT route, and I went a different path. But we've been hosting this for the last 8 years. And when we host this, there's minimum sponsorship, minimum advertisement. We just go to the community, and last year we had over 200 different people that came to this basketball tournament. That's relationship. You're able to rub shoulders with the community. You're able to engage in a different level. And then the other picture on the right was We Are All Human event that I hosted. And this was 2 days before the 2016 election. Can you imagine, how intense it would have been? I actually received a lot of emails from even texts from people that were close to me that said, Deo, why are you hosting a discussion on what influences our political identity? That was the name of that discussion. I was like, well, if we can't talk about where we're divided, how are we ever going to get to the root of understanding each other? And I felt a lot of pressure going into this discussion, guys. And as you tell on the right picture, it ended up being a super intimate setting. It was the coolest thing. And I remember we had a conversation around women's right. And when I say we, I was just listening. The female that were in this, they all had their own definition of what women's rights are. And it was such a fascinating thing to hear them explain how it shapes who they are and what it was. And I was like, man, at the end of the discussion, I was like, this is exactly why I hosted this. And then the next piece is participation. So in order for us to be civically engaged, we have to participate. And there's so many different modalities of participating. And I was just able to pull some pictures from different stuff that I've been involved with, different stuff that I've attended. So on the top left, that's the most recent one. That's Michael Bennett. So that's just this last round of election that happened during the primary. Somebody called me up and said, hey, would you be interested to meet with Michael Bennett? He's interested to learn more about what you do in the community and your work. And I was like, all right, come through. Have him come through so I have a little creative space that I work out of in Manchester. And I've spoken to a lot of politicians, and for me, I was like, he's going to come through for maybe 5 minutes. Oh, a little handshake. Oh, cool. He ended up spending an hour with me. And if you guys know, he used to be a superintendent of a school in Colorado. And we just had conversation about education. And it was a really awesome conversation. I didn't end up voting for Michael Bennett, or I didn't support him at that level, but to be able to engage and just have that conversation, it was super powerful. And for me, it's New Hampshire has this privilege regarding the primary, at least up to this point, where you can actually go to town halls, you can go to people's living room, you can go to all these different places. And if you want to inspire your students to be able to be civically engaged, or even yourself, you got to participate. So when you think about your curriculums, when you think about how to help your students, you got to leverage opportunities like that. And that happens here every 4 years. And then the next one is actually, that was Hillary Clinton, the 2012. No, it wasn't 2012. That was 2016. And she came to the company, the higher education program that I was working for. They had her come do a little town hall. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask her a question about using federal Pell Grants, not having to wait until college, actually for students who do dual enrollment, for them to be able to utilize it while they're still in high school. And that was the question I posed. And then on the far left, and now people are like, oh, Deo is such a liberal, progressive person. Is that Trump I see? Yes. So I was invited for, I think it was a lunch or something. That's the same thing, 2016 election. And someone was like, hey, Trump is speaking. And so for me, as a political science major person that's engaged, I have learned along the way to neutralize myself so I can be able to dissect information at its face value. And I think as educators, it's really hard for us to separate our own personal perspective and moralities around how we engage civically. So for me, it's a challenge. I have to push myself and figure out hey, if I can get close to both ends, I need to be able to engage and learn, and whatever that means. So yeah, I went to that lunch, and I got to hear him speak. And then the next one is Cory Booker's. He had a really awesome people of color kind of intimate dinner, and at that time it was close to his goodbye. He was trying to ramp up as much energy he could to try to keep going, but at that point it was man, you didn't really have a narrative. But he's such an intelligent dude, and whatever, he's a smart dude, has experiences. But anyways, that's participation. There's so many different levels of participation. And then the far right is Jeb Bush when towards actually this was the same thing. That was towards the end of he had like Lindsey Graham open for him. I was like, man, Lindsey Graham was just going against him. Like now it was towards the end. But anyways, participation, that like if we're gonna be civically engaged, it's not just a Facebook post, it's not just defending your perspective, your point of view, it's about being able to participate. And then the next one is our responsibility. Participation is one end, but where we have opportunities to actually engage, advocate for something, hold a sign for something, that's the next tier of that, right? Participating, you might just be listening. But our responsibility is to actually, when you're informed, when you're educated, when you know what's going on and you're able to find the position that aligns with you, then the next tier is like, what now? Like, what is your responsibility? And I think it's really important to when you think about your curriculum and how you deliver your information to your students, that they have opportunity every day, every week, every month to actually like engage. And if you look at some of my earlier slide, I showed you how I was engaged early on as a young man who probably didn't really even have the means to quote unquote engage civically because, we had challenges that we were kind of acclimating and moving to, but I found opportunities that were, relevant to who I was. So then later on in life, I was able to find other ways to engage. So the picture you see on the left, I'm watching my time. I got you guys. The picture you see on the left, that is a controversial picture right there, the top left. So I went to a local discussion 2 years ago around how does New Hampshire retain and becomes more inviting to Black and brown or multi-ethnic groups of people. And this was a workforce thing. So this is like, you have people from like Eversource, for all these companies, they're trying to look at it, like how do we become more inclusive, right? So I went to the conference, and at the end of the conference, the picture of me is taken. And that's Will Avero. He works for the business development for the state of New Hampshire. He used to be the president of Great Bay College. So I wasn't quoted in an article. So Time Magazine New York Times decided to do an article about the event. And it had a very controversial title. It said New Hampshire is too white and that people are trying to do something about it. Anyways, so there was all this backlash, right? That happened. So I get this email just like boom from this like random person I don't know. It's like, leave New Hampshire the way it is. Don't try to da-da-da-da. I was like, oh, and then I started getting tweets and all this stuff. I was like, man, I wasn't even quoted on this article. Just a picture of me with my name on it. And then it got really intense, So I never responded to any of the inquiry that were coming in. So then they social media, they saw that I was married, I have children. So then they started commenting on my wife's stuff, just nasty stuff. And she was really impacted by it. She definitely was. And I remember, mind you, I just told you my story, right? Like where I came from. So like a little threat doesn't really, especially when it's like around like something positive that I feel strongly about, like it doesn't really do anything to me. And I was reflecting on that and I was like, man, this is what happens when you engage to a certain level. And I remember even my mother-in-law was really impacted by it, because you're right, because like we're getting threats and all that. And I remember in my heart, I was like, man, this is what being engages. And the craziest thing was like, I didn't even say anything in this magazine. That was just a picture of me. But anyways, the one on the bottom is, I've gone up in front of the school board to speak on different things in Manchester, and also in front of aldermen. But that one was in result of, during a mayor debate, a gentleman raised his hand, and the mayor knew the gentleman and decided to confront the gentleman by saying, you're not an immigrant, you're a refugee, or something to that extent. And almost like lessening who he is. So then I wasn't there. I didn't know what was happening, but somebody called me and said, hey man, the next school board meeting, it would be great to have you, speak and make a point. So I went up there to testify, and it wasn't for me to try to like outsmart somebody. Like, I just spoke about how so many people have come to this state, to this city, and they have contributed tremendously. And there's so many different success stories. And, we have to think of immigrants beyond just the negative narrative that's out there. But anyway, so that was from that. And then the one on the top right is most recent one. That was in November, I believe. And same thing. So that was in front of what led to this interview with WMUR was the president decided that he was going to give the states the right to decide if they were going to welcome former refugees to resettle in their city. And then our governor decided to bring it down to the mayor level. So I needed to go up and testify why it was important for Manchester to still be a place to welcome refugees. And nothing changed. But the only thing that changed was Refugee Resettlement Agency could still get the federal money that they were getting if the mayor said yes. So I went out there and another presentation regarding that. And anyway, luckily it ended up being passed unanimously. And then the last one you see in the bottom, I don't know if some of you guys have heard of the Manchester Proud initiative. I was involved with it for the last year. It's a community event. It's a community movement around improving the Manchester School District. We have businesses, parents, teachers, principals, and I worked on it for a year straight. The people that you see in that picture, we worked together for a year straight, looking at data, looking at hunches, and coming up with the best solution and how we move forward as a community. And the board of school ended up adopting the strategy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be implemented. But that was a big milestone. And that was probably one of the most intensive kind of community movement that I've been involved with in terms of the length of time. It was literally a year long of multiple times a year of engaging. So that brings me to my conclusion around civic engagement. Now you see the spin, right? Civic engagement is our responsibility. Oh, snap. Boom. That's it. But anyways, yeah, I think it's so important as educators to look at how the different moving parts that are in our community, the different moving parts that are happening within our states nationally, and find opportunities to be able to elevate your curriculum and your content in order to give students realistic perspectives and realistic opportunity to be able to engage at that level. And they can engage based on their interest. It doesn't have to be like, I've memorized the Declaration of Independence. And, they can find different modality that suits them in order to be engaged. And then for you personally too, I want to challenge you too as teachers, as educators, like, what is your greater calling in terms of the community that you live in terms of you being involved. So thank you guys so much for being able to join me. I know we started a little bit late, so hopefully you guys have like 2 minutes, 3 minutes for questions. I love to be able to answer some questions. I will try to find some resources that I will send over to the team, and they can send